Welcome into hardcore Penn State football. Penn State is just a week and a half away from kicking off their season against Nevada. We've got some catching up to do here at the show. We're going to talk a little recruiting today, going to talk about some camp news and a couple other little things, as well as answer a bunch of your fan questions. We'll get right into the show. Welcome into hardcore Penn State football. I'm Corey Listoki. With me, as always, the great Sean Kane. How you doing today, Sean?
Doing good, Corey. Doing good. I'm just looking at the graphic at the bottom, and you look at how good our graphics look after 2 episodes, and then you look at the signage on Beaver Stadium right now during their millions of dollars worth of renovations, and that's the best they could come up with outside of Gate A. And maybe they should have just hired you, Corey.
I think that's right. I think that's what they should have done. Do you see us live on your end?
Let me check.
Just want to make sure, as it says we're live on air, but awkward pause. While you're looking that up, because I am in a hotel and have terrible.
Welcome to hardcore Penn State football.
Yes, we are live.
Okay, perfect.
Tad behind, but nothing major.
Yeah, I'm in a hotel room right now, and so the fact that we're even recording this is something that we weren't able to really do previously. So this is one benefit to what we've moved to. But yeah, Sean, no, we have a lot of customization of work to do on this for our show, obviously, that I haven't got to yet. But we heard some positive feedback from some of the fans. First of all, a lot of people are happy that we were back. I don't know if you went on YouTube, Sean, but a lot of nice, very friendly comments. So appreciate that. But just in general, people are like, hey, things looked good. And so, appreciate that. But yeah, we're back, and I did get confirmation on that lettering, so they are going to fix that, I guess, apparently, but not before the regular season starts. Which, by the way, Darian Summers, I think had actually a good point about, yes, it is West Shore home field at Beaver Stadium now. When or how much advertising do they get on the stadium itself if it's really a field purchasing? Like they paid for the rights for field advertisements. I'm not going to go as far as saying like being able to say West Shore home field at Beaver Stadium on the stadium is wrong, but you do start to wonder, like, when is that too much, and when does it turn into you're now paying for a stadium right, not a field right?
Well, I mean, back in the day now, it never went by any other name until now, but Heinz Field, like, they had a lot of advertising all over that in Pittsburgh. Now, it was never Heinz Field at, like, Acrisure Stadium, and now it's just Acrisure Stadium. So I don't know if there's a difference there. And I know there's some places that have the field in the stadium, so I think you would probably just look there to see what happened. But if they're putting the signage all over the stadium, I would assume that there's some kind of deal, because they wouldn't be doing that for no money.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not sure how I feel about all that. Not that it really matters, but a lot to talk about today. Again, we kind of mentioned that we're not going to try to play catch up too much when it comes to, what we missed this past summer. But we do want to talk a little bit recruiting. Actually, Sean wants to talk about recruiting because I don't know much. I'm going to be listening and learning as much as everybody else, as far as maybe some commits that Penn State missed out on this year. And we also have a new commit to talk about as well. But before I do that, I wanted to get just one more kind of housekeeping Penn State news thing out of the way. Penn State did name their captains for the 2025 season. Quarterback Drew Aller, linebacker Dom DeLuca, go buy his sauce. I don't even know if he still sells the sauce. We might need to get confirmation on that. Defensive tackle Zane Durant, 6-year center Nick Dawkins and long snapper Tyler Duzansky. I don't think it was surprising, Sean. The only thing that surprised me was, does it feel a little bit lighter than usual? Or am I just misremembering?
I feel like it's always around this amount. But I know he has leadership council and everything, and they're not captains, but they're considered to be leaders on the team. I don't think that any big surprises here. They love Nick Dawkins on and off the field, and he's been a captain a couple of years now. Dom DeLuca is a 3-time captain. Drew Aller's the quarterback. Was a captain. I think he was a captain sophomore year, right? I believe. I know he was at least captain last year.
This will be his third. Yeah, he's a 3-year captain now. Yep.
I think it's Zane Durant's first time being a captain, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think he was a captain last year.
I don't think he was either. No, because Stephon Ellis.
Yes, Stephon Ellis was a captain for a few years.
Stephon J. Thomas.
Yeah, Stephon J. Thomas. And Duzansky, I think he was a captain last year as well. So, yeah, I don't think anybody too surprising on that list. And, I'm ready to roll.
Ready to rock and roll?
I am.
All right. So let's start with a new commit, Sean, because I think that's at least something I can participate in. Penn State's doing very well in the 2027 class, which we're not going to probably talk about too much today. But they go get another top prospect, not just in Pennsylvania this time, but in the country, in athlete Gabe Jenkins. Now, where he's going to play, Sean, is sort of up in the air, right? I mean, he's still growing, still obviously has a couple years of high school left. Played some running back this past year because of some injuries at his high school team, most likely playing defense. However, playing secondary right now, some people think he might grow into a linebacker. I think T. Frank had the best kind of comparison that he's like a Dakari Nelson type player.
Yeah.
And so with that being said, Sean, maybe just talk about Mr. Gabe Jenkins and what Penn State's getting and how big of a commit it is, again, out of the WPIL AL. I don't know why I couldn't say that.
Yeah, I mean, when Penn State's recruiting at its best, it's recruiting Pittsburgh well. And Gabe Jenkins is the latest in that edition, top 60 overall player, according to 24/7 Sports. Adds to what's now the number 1 class for 2027. And yeah, physical. I think physicality really stuck out, and still has 2 years left of high school film to put out there. So I kind of like that comp. Dakari Nelson, I think he's a guy that could play multiple spots. He's already 6 foot, $185, and I think he's gonna improve on. He's gonna get bigger. Could see him playing safety here, as well as corner. And I think the thing with playing offense, they're so loaded right now at running back. Like even after Singleton and Allen are gone next year, I think they're still gonna have a ton of depth there at running back. So I think he sticks at defense.
Yeah, and I mean, come on, spell in that class too. I mean, there's not a
if we can hang on to him.
Yeah, thanks, John Sider. We're not going to talk about him twice in back-to-back episodes. Okay, Sean.
He might come up again in the recruiting.
That's true. But I'm not going to rant about it today. What else have I missed over the last couple of months?
Yeah. So overall, Penn State's class for 2026, I'm happy we got the positive start. 2026, though, it's a solid class so far, but I feel a lot like how I did at this time last year. Just they missed out on quite a few guys that everybody kind of thought they were in good position for. Luke Wafel, Owen's brother. There really wasn't much we could do on that. I think, according to everybody, USC offered well north of $1 million in NIL money. And I just don't think Penn State want to pull the trigger on that. And you could kind of understand that. And, from hearing from recruiting people, if Penn State did have that money, they probably would have spent that money on him. But you have to take into account dynamics in the locker room and all of that. And then you compare where we're at to where USC is at. Lincoln Riley's trying to hang on to his job. That means you're going to be more willing to take more risks. And I think that's really what happens when you offer a guy like that money that not only Penn State wasn't offering, Ohio State wasn't offering, or Texas weren't offering. And if you followed that recruitment at all, it was always kind of seen as Penn State, Texas, or Ohio State, and then USC just came in at the 11th hour and said, "Here's $1 million," and he went to USC. And I can't fault him. Go play out in Southern California for north of $1 million. Not too shabby of a deal. But with how unstable things are at USC, maybe Penn State comes back around in a year or two. Who knows? Nolan Rucci route. Another guy, because we did miss out on a few guys. I want to highlight Joey O'Brien. That one really sucked. And I kind of thought Penn State was going to be able to get that done. And, something Corey and I talk a lot about with recruiting, we do really well when we're able to close the deal early on a kid. But the longer things tend to hang out there, Penn State, not every time, but a lot of times will fall behind, especially in today's day and age, because I think the NIL deals get a little steeper. And I don't think Joey O'Brien, the only reason he went to Notre Dame is because of NIL, but they did offer, from what everybody says, they offered more than Penn State did. But I don't think that was the ultimate deciding factor. But sometimes you lose out on a kid too, and it's not all, you can't just chalk it all up to NIL. And those two guys really stand out a lot. Kari Adams, that was another one that we missed out on to Notre Dame as well. And kind of a similar story. We just kind of unfortunately got our asses kicked by Notre Dame this year on the recruiting trail. And it really sucks. And I really want to beat them by 100 points in the playoffs next year. It's to the point that I want them to make the playoffs just so that we could stop them into submission. Because I'm so sick of losing to those sons of bitches. But it's...
How does that make you feel, Sean?
It just blows. But and then we also lost Paint Foul Zone to Auburn. That was another one. Kind of came out of nowhere. Paint Foul Zone's from our backyard and just ended up at Auburn. So I'm not, to be honest with you, I'm not entirely sure what happened there. Also, there's a question on how good Paint Foul Zone could throw the ball. And that's kind of important to be a quarterback.
You usually want to be able to do that.
It's an important skill. But I'm not going to say he wasn't a talented kid. He is. But we also have Troy Hewitt in this class. And then another 2027 guy we missed out on to Michigan, who also cleaned up against Penn State, Peter Bork. And Penn State missed out for 2027. So still need a quarterback in 2027, but Penn State sits in a pretty good spot with a few different guys. So that's kind of the recruiting rundown from the last few months, the negative side.
Yeah, that makes me feel great, Sean. I just want to give a shout out to Elise on YouTube as well as Brian Burge. Brian says best Penn State pod out there. So I don't know if I'd go that far, but we appreciate it regardless of if it's true or not. You have any good news, Sean, for us that you'd like to, maybe turn this episode around to a little bit more positive?
The 2027 class is really good. Oh, Jackson Ford committed. That's class of 2026. That was a kid that a lot of people wanted. Michigan was in on. Ohio State offered. So we can't let the bad get in the way of the good either. Like I said, 2027, we're still sitting in a good spot. People are raving about how good Keemon Spell is. And as long as Penn State can hang on to him, I think the sky's the limit on this kid.
Is the 2026 class, it's sitting right around 15-ish. Is that, are we basically done there? What's left? that you want to see out of that class?
Well, it's flip season. So I think there's going to be some attempted flips at least. Kid that Penn State might be going after Dorian Barney, Michigan commit. He's a cornerback. It was kind of surprising, not super surprising, but Penn State was seen as maybe a bit of a leader there. He's from Erie originally, moved to Georgia, and then committed to Michigan. So I think Penn State might be able to flip him, but it's definitely not a done deal. You never want to call your shot on a flip. But if we could get him to the Oregon game, I think that would go a long way. So I think they're going to try to flip some more guys. And there might be a guy that we take a flyer out on the end. There usually is. And sometimes that works out really well. Look at Vega Ioane. Once upon a time was a flip guy at the very end of a class and might be an All-American this year.
There was a really good story in the Penn State football annual this year about Vega and that kind of like last second commit. Basically Washington was in a complete turmoil and they didn't really know what was going on. And so Vega kind of took a step back, and I think the hardest thing was for him to imagine being so far away from his family and stuff. But anyway, it's a really good article, good story. I honestly don't remember who wrote it, but if you have picked up your annual Townham gown, it's in there somewhere. Anywho, anyone else that you want to talk about, Sean?
No, I think we'll kind of keep it at this right now. But like I said, I don't want to make it like the 2026 class is a bad class. Like look at like we just talked about last year's class, and we have all these freshmen on a really deep team already that are going to be pushing for playing time. So you can't just chalk it up. Like one thing I will always give James Franklin is he's very good at finding talent. Like people forget, like Abdul Carter was not a 5-star guy. He kind of became a 5-star guy at Penn State. He was a 4-star. It's not like he was some schlub in high school. But Penn State tends to develop these 4-star guys and make them into something more. And then if you look at their hit rate with 5-star prospects, it's pretty good. There aren't a lot of 5-star busts here. I know we've had a couple of them, but so does everybody. I can see Corey just remembering Justin Shorter.
Correct. Well, and I think that is a good point, though, is like everyone thinks that, every 5-star kid's going to be great. But then it's like you got to remember, like Alabama gets how many 5-stars? Georgia gets how many 5-stars? Ohio State gets how many 5-stars? And yeah, the hit rate's pretty good on all of them, but there are a couple that get through the crack. Like it's not like just a guarantee because you get a 5-star, your whole life is going to be better.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of gets lost sometimes.
Look at Texas A&M, how many 5-stars they got the past few years.
Yeah. Well, they have other problems there as well. Although they're such a weird team. I mean, they still have so much talent that they could be an interesting team this year as well. I wanted to just bring up quickly, too, I think Audrey Snyder, I mean, they had the media in Beaver Stadium this past weekend. The bleachers, temporary bleachers. Well, two things. One, they look really good. They added bleachers over the kind of pocket above the student section there in between, the end zone and the sideline bleachers. They added another little subsection there. Do we know, Sean, for sure? Is that going to be, I'm assuming it's not students, but that's just more like people that had to be moved from where their current seats were somehow?
I'm not sure. I actually didn't notice the bleachers over the student section.
Yeah. I could probably figure out a way to get a picture in here, but yeah, I mean, we tweeted about it but and why I tweeted it is I basically said it's going to be loud as shit in there on September 27th. I mean, just the way the bleachers are set up. I mean, it looks like the angle looks steeper than, when the press box was there and everything else. And so they're closer to the field, I think. Maybe not. It just seemed that way from her video from down on the field. I think it honestly could be the loudest it might ever be this year. So pretty excited about that, just from a volume perspective and an atmosphere perspective. It looks really good. Like, everyone's talking about it being a potential safety hazard. Maybe. I'm not sitting on that side, so doesn't really bother me too much. But from the standpoint of like making it look seamless, at least temporarily, I think they actually did a pretty good job.
Yeah, like they don't look like a death trap anymore. They still very well might be, but they don't look like it. Like, and because that was my first impression when I saw them when they first went in the stadium, was that looks super unsafe. And I'm not sure how much they did to reinforce them, but it looks safer.
Well, they put that blue like cargo net behind it, and that made it like look way better. Like, it's amazing what that did. Again, maybe not safer, but it looks better.
Yeah, it looks better. So, and look, I'm sure honestly, it probably goes through a lot of as many safety tests as you can. But it would make me feel like it would put me at a better peace of mind going up there if I did have seats up there. But I will not be having seats up there.
Yeah, I mean, how do you stress test it, right? Like, you can't really reenact a Tony Rojas pick six in a playoff game.
I know. But then I think a lot of our friends in the media would say, well, the press box itself was a death trap before and it never fell.
That's a good point.
So, which is probably true. It didn't even look like they had to do much when they moved it, when they took the state, when they removed it from the stadium. It looked like somebody just went in and pushed it.
Just boop, and then it fell over. Yeah. That's a good point. We have a lot of fan questions, Sean, that I think will drive the show to a certain degree. Mm-hmm. Someone did ask us a fan question that we had already actually answered, so a little bit of egg on your face. Hopefully you went back and listened to the previous episode, but we had a lot. So I also asked folks, and Sean, maybe I'll start with yours, is hold on a second, is not including the Oregon or Ohio State game, what game are you most worried about?
Well, I know which one it isn't for Corey. That would be the Iowa Hawkeyes. But I'm gonna go Indiana. I think Indiana's still gonna be, I was so ready to write them off this year until I read about what they have coming back. And it's pretty impressive. And I was ready to just be like, well, they're gonna be a one-year wonder, and they'll always be okay with Cignetti, but I think they're going to be pretty good, and they're going to be coming in here. They still don't have they play Oregon out in Eugene. They're probably going to lose that one. That might be their only loss coming in, though. There's they get to avoid Ohio State. I don't think they play Michigan either. So that might be their only loss coming in. I'm happy we get them at home. And then as far as a quote unquote trap game goes, like a Minnesota game from last year, watch UCLA. UCLA was better than anybody really thought last year. I know they only won 4 or 5 games, but they were in a lot and they battled. They brought in Nico from Tennessee, and I know he's not the perfect quarterback or anything, but he's played in a lot of big games. He's not going to be intimidated by a team like Penn State. And the Rose Bowl is a bit of a weird place to go during a UCLA game because you do have to bring your own juice. It's kind of like going to play in Indiana or Purdue, where it's a little sleepy and it's such a big stadium with not that many people typically. So I would watch out for them. And then, of course, you got to put Iowa on the list too. As much as it would pain Corey to say, it's still Kinnick.
I chose you to choose one. You just chose all of them. But
my answer was Indiana, but I'm bringing up other ones.
I'm curious. People in the chat on YouTube, I'm curious also who you would have on that list as well. Um, I mean, Iowa for Kinnick, I get, right? I get that. I think honestly, Iowa missed their chance. I think last year they should have been way better than they were. Now they lost a lot of close games, but they had a really good running back, a more experienced offensive line, a relatively good quarterback, and a really good defense. And they didn't really do much. I mean, as far as Iowa standards go, that was like a great opportunity for them, and they didn't really capitalize on it. And also, they didn't play very many good teams. Reflecting back on the year, it's the opposite for Iowa this year. They play a lot of really good teams that are probably not going to end up with a very good record. And I would expect them to be fighting to get to a bowl game this year. But playing at Kinnick, I get it. It's not going to be easy there. I like the Indiana one. I tell you what, like Nebraska's an interesting one to me because I am not completely sold on Nebraska this year. I know Josh Pate is very much sold on Nebraska. Has him in his college football playoff. Which
For
is
real?
Yeah, for real. So, like, again, I wouldn't go that far, but I am curious to see the steps they've taken or will take, and the improvements there. And I'm just maybe they don't have it figured out right away, but maybe by the time Penn State plays them at the end of the year, they have things figured out. I don't really know. So that one's an interesting one to me because I think they could have some firepower at least behind them, and so I'd be curious about that one. But yeah, Indiana's as much of a wild card as they could be a wild card as far as bringing in so many more transfers could work out. It may not work out. You mentioned UCLA. Just wanted a little fun tidbit. The former UCLA quarterback just was announced as a starting quarterback for Tennessee. So they literally have, in a way, kind of flipped quarterbacks, Tennessee and UCLA. So take that for what you will. And then I just wanted to, mention Michigan State real quick. Jonathan Smith's second year. I think they have a sneaky good year this year. Nick Marsh is just excellent. And so I'd be curious to see what Michigan State can do. And I think a lot of people on Twitter, kind of message us and was like, East Lansing's not a great place to play. Remember last time Penn State played them, it was in the Ford Field, so they didn't have to worry about that.
Yeah, Michigan State's a good one. But the thing is, they're kind of a mystery box. I don't know what to expect from them. And I think Jonathan Smith's a good coach. I don't know long term if he's going to work out at Michigan State. I think he might just be out of place. Like, their recruiting ranking is like in the 80s. Yeah, and you just ain't going to be along very long if that's how you're recruiting in the Big Ten.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. All right, let's get to some of these fan questions. This is from who should we go here with? Well, Mudbug, I just want to say supported what I said. He said, "Am I crazy to think that the latest stadium picks with the stands in the corner gaps and the higher west side make me think it will be louder?" And I was like, "Yeah, I think so. I think he's right." Let's start with a long-time listener to the show, Einstein von Braun. Mister, what's one area that if the starter goes down, we're so deep at that we don't have to worry about a big production drop-off? I'm saying running back.
Yeah, running back is the easy one.
Sorry, that's what Einstein said, not me. But anyway.
Okay.
I don't think that's almost fair because I almost view them as starter A and starter B. Because if you include them as like one person, I would argue losing one of them and then having to see more of the third string guy could be a relatively significant. Maybe not, but that wouldn't be my choice either way. I'll let you go first.
I would go tight end. I feel really good about three of those. I think we have three guys that could start and play well, not just get by. So I don't want to see any of those guys go down. But if we had to lose one, I would probably say tight end.
This might maybe be surprising because I probably have never said this since we've had this podcast. But how about offensive line?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, You
really
lose a
any
tackle,
position
you
on it.
feel pretty good. You lose a guard,
Yeah.
you feel pretty good. You lose a center, you feel pretty good. Like, when have we ever thought that or said that ever?
Never. We have 8 guys that would start on about 95% of college teams, which is unbelievable.
Really is. Really is. So thank you, Einstein von Braun, for that question. Higgs asked, with Sean's newfound dad strength, does that help him in his chip block quest against JTT? I'll hang up and listen.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Will Gamble, listener of the show for quite some time as well. With all the hype we are hearing about Chaz Coleman coming out of camp, do you think he burns his red shirt? So yeah, I think the hype for Chaz Coleman may have like kind of came out right after we'd recorded the last episode.
It did.
Chaz Coleman, true freshman. I think maybe he was 4-star in some places, 3-star some other places. What do you have the quote? What does Jim Knowles call him? The Chazmanian Devil.
Chazmanian Devil. Yep.
So that's not a bad nickname. Was an athletic guy coming out of high school. Played basketball quite a bit. Hasn't really played the defensive end position very much or for very long. I think only 1 year in high school, and a lethal spin move. Just pure raw athleticism right now. But he has a good size and apparently incredible speed. And he's doing some work against some of the starters in practice and in camp so far. To answer the question just straight up, I think he does burn his red shirt. I think there was a quote out there talking about kind of his demeanor. And James Franklin asked every single guy, do you see yourself as a green light? Like you're going to play more than 4 games as a freshman? Do you see yourself as a yellow light where you're right on that threshold of more than 4 games, or are you red light and you're probably going to be practice squatted, not getting in any games? And I guess Chaz was worried that he would just want to be a yellow light. Like that's what he was hoping. And I guess all the other guys are like, dude, you're green. Like, shut up. Like, you don't know you don't even know what you're capable of right now. And so it's pretty exciting. I think with a lot of this stuff, you kind of have to tone down. Like some people are like, oh, he might, end up being a starter before you. I'm like, whoa, let's like cool it a little bit here. But I do think he will burn his red shirt, not just because he's probably good and athletic, but also because I think a lot of guys are going to play a lot of football at the defensive end position this year.
Yeah, we talked about the defensive end and our potential worries about depth there. And hearing that Chaz Coleman is going to be ready to go really makes me feel better about really the team overall. And again, we don't need him to be a starter. That's not what we have a 4th-year senior and a 5th or 6th-year senior, however long Sorry Fisher's been here. So we have starters. It's just about what's behind them. So having Chaz Coleman there really adds a whole nother layer to it. And God, Franklin was downright giddy talking about this kid and how excited he is. And you don't see that a ton with Franklin hyping up freshmen for obvious reasons. So I think, yeah, like it surprised me a little bit just because he just came in and he didn't come in before the spring. Like he was just at his prom 2 months ago. And for him to be ready to go, I mean, how can't you be super excited about that?
I love being excited around here. So thank you for that question, Will. I thought we had another question on the freshman, but now I don't think I can find it. We talked a little bit about who's the other defensive end that everyone's kind of talking about?
Ivan Kamaju.
Kamaju, yes. I thought we had another question revolving around him as well, but now I can't find it. But he also was kind of put in that same sentence as well,
He's
Sean.
Green, yeah, green light.
Not related to a question, but we'll get to back to the questions in a second. Defensive tackle depth. I don't think we had a question on this. Not great for your boy Liam Andrews.
Give Liam time. But yes, he's not among the first 4 or 5 guys, which if you look at defensive tackle depth, okay. If you look at defensive tackle depth, I mean, it's not the offensive line depth, but
No.
I was hoping he'd be able to find his way, but don't forget he's coming off injury, so let's give it time.
I'm not like mad at the kid or anything like that. I just, how you gave him your full stamp of approval, so I'm excited for him. I co-signed it. Like I thought he was going to be great too. So I'm excited to see what happens. But yeah, right now the defensive tackle depth. I don't have the quote in front of me right now, but what Sean basically we know who kind of the starters are.
First 3 guys, yeah.
But then there was a handful of guys kind of after that were all kind of contributing. Tyreek Blanding was one guy that I don't think he had really mentioned a ton before, and he brought up landing and had a quick first step. So that's a little bit of a newer one. That's good to hear. A little bit for Wayful as well.
Yeah, and then Gilliam. So I think that's the 5.
Gilliam. Yeah.
That's the 5, Ford and Durant. So that's going to be, and one of the things that did make me feel better about the defensive line depth in general is Jerry DiNardo seemed really, really impressed by them. Jerry DiNardo's former coach, been around a lot of ball. So if he's kind of signing off on that, and with the Big Ten preview, I feel like they're pretty good in their predictions. Like I remember back a few years ago, they would be like, the offensive line is like not ready. And then we get there and the offensive line was not ready. So they're usually pretty on point with a lot of their predictions.
You know what? We kind of answered R. Scatz's question because he specifically said, how big a role do you see the true freshman defensive line playing? So sorry, R. Scatz. I knew there was something like that. I apologize, but thank you for the question as well. Jim Peck says, what game do you think the temporary seating will collapse? So appreciate that, Jim.
Oregon, if it does.
If it makes it past Oregon, you got to feel pretty good about it.
I think we'll be all right then, yeah.
So we had the question about which, we talked last week about, do you feel better about defensive line or linebacker? Well, just to wrap up this question, Daniel, formerly from Instagram, I hadn't forgot about that, Daniel. He came over. Daniel's the guy who literally made an X account just to ask us questions. So appreciate that, Daniel. And Elon, you can send us a check at my address, which you probably already have somehow. He says, are we more concerned about defensive tackle or defensive end depth specifically? I'll go first, and I'll just say I think I'm more worried about defensive end depth, actually.
I would agree. Just a lot of unproven parts there, even starting really with the starters. Like, I think Zariah Fisher will be fine, but it's also coming off. He's had a lot of injuries in the last 2 out of 3 years, and I think he'll be okay, but who knows? Where defensive tackle, I feel really good about obviously Zane Durant, but then I feel really good about Alonzo Ford too.
All right, I think we only have one more question. No, I'm just kidding. 2 more. This is from Mark Thomas, also a longtime listener of the show. Given the quality of non-conference opponents, or the lack thereof, I guess I would say, and likelihood of depth players getting reps, is there any concern that the ones will possibly go until the Oregon game without playing all 4 quarters? Rest versus rust is kind of what he's hinting at there. I would say you're probably barking up the correct tree as far as that. I would say that's definitely a possibility. And I wouldn't necessarily say that's a concern. Like if Drew Aller was a true freshman quarterback, maybe that's a different conversation. But Aller's played plenty. This offensive line has played plenty. The running backs have played plenty. Even the tight ends have played plenty. The only really concern I could see is probably what maybe you're hinting at is, has the quarterback and the receivers had enough time to gel? I always see, Sean, people are like, oh, we should just come out throwing the heck out of the ball for the first month. And you're like, yeah, like theoretically that maybe sounds correct, but that's just not how it's going to be. Like they're going to run their offense. And I will say, though, by doing that, it opens up the opportunity to be criticized if they struggle to throw the ball against Oregon and Drew Aller. Let's say Drew Aller, because you could almost guarantee that Drew Aller won't have more than, call it, 30 pass attempts in any of the first couple games, right?
Yeah.
And so maybe he should, because he probably is going to end up throwing the ball 30 times against Oregon. And so I'm just saying you give yourself an opportunity to be criticized if you lose that game and you didn't give Drew Aller a couple chances in a couple games to get used to it. If that was obvious, like let's say Oregon, the receivers don't have a catch against Oregon or something like that again. And it's like, well, did you do everything possible to prepare the receivers and Drew Aller for that moment? And I'm guessing, based on how they're going to probably go about this, is maybe not.
Yeah, I just I think, though, how do I put it? With playing nobody out of conference, I would be more worried, like you said, if we had a younger team, which we don't. When you look at all the guys that are going to be resting in the fourth quarter, they're all guys that have played before and played in big moments. So I don't think it's too concerning in my view. Now, like you said, too, I think the way Penn State plays and the way we're going to play this season, we might not be able to put everybody away. We might not be up 42-0 at the end of the first quarter against these first three teams, just because of the nature of how I think this team is going to be, which is going to be that ground and pound. Then Drew beats you over the top. I think that's going to be the way they're going to be playing this. So, yeah, to answer the question directly, I don't really think it's too much of a concern just because we have so much experience. But I do think on the same hand, on the other hand, I should say, there is something to be said about having about getting a punch in the mouth before you play against a team like Oregon. And we ain't getting any punch in the mouth against these three teams. I just don't see it.
Villanova is not going to punch in the mouth?
I don't think so. Unless Tyler Elston is out there again, like he was against Delaware. Remember that run he gave up?
Yes. But
and Penn State Twitter completely imploded.
We talk about this every year, and we'll probably talk about it more when we actually face Villanova. But remember, there are red flags that we can find depending on how they play against the Villanovas of the world. Villanova was a perfect example of when we realized that Kevon Lee wasn't going to do it at running back long term, basically.
Yes, and we saw that Noah Kane ran like an 80-year-old at that point, and it just wasn't going to get it done.
Yeah. That caught me by surprise. I had no idea where you're going with that one. If people aren't remembering because you weren't listening to the show or watching the show at that point, Penn State struggled to run a ball against Villanova, and it ended up being a motif for the entire season. So we will get things out of it, but I think it's a good question. We didn't really talk much about defense on that question. I don't think defense is a problem. You go look at Penn State, especially when Manny Diaz, that 1 year, I guess that would have been Manny Diaz's second season. So I guess 2 years ago, the snap count for players was insane. The one game, I'm pretty sure Abdul Carter literally had 11 snaps in a football game. That's all he was out there for, or something.
Yeah, Manny loved working guys in games like this. More so than Tom Allen did last year. Well, last year we couldn't really rotate a ton against Bowling Green.
No, because he almost lost.
Yes, and then even against Kent State, we were kind of asleep the first quarter and a half, if you remember. And Kent State is the worst team in the country last year. Yeah. But I just don't think we bothered showing up for the offense specifically didn't bother showing up the first quarter and a half. So we had to keep the starters in longer than I think they wanted to in that game too.
But I think that's a good point. There are definitely goals that you want to achieve in those games, and honestly, Penn State didn't do a great job of it last year. So, I think the biggest thing now is how many games they may play in the postseason, a conference championship, a potential bye. Then I guess theoretically, but they could theoretically Here's the thing, John. They could play a conference championship game, lose, not get a bye, and then still have to play an additional 3 games to win a national championship.
Yep. And just in general,
it's a lot of football.
I want to see this team this season be more boots to asses against everybody, except the better teams. It's a little bit harder. But last season and the year before, and even the year before, and those are 3 really good teams. There was a lot of playing with our food and just kind of going through the motions to start games. And I don't really want to see that. I want us to get out, get ahead, and just kind of sit on teams. Right from the get-go. And if there's one thing I want to see more
killer instinct.
Yes, how many times, Corey, early in the season last year, I remember having these conversations where we we had another slow start. I don't want to have those conversations as much this season. That's not really what most championship teams do. Just kind of muddle through the first quarter and a half of football games. I don't want to see that. And really, with the team with as much experience as we have, there's no excuse to be doing that anymore.
Can you imagine with all the excitement that we have going into this year, the offense gets the ball first and they just go dink dunk down the field. All 3 receivers have a catch on the drive and it ends with a Drew Aller touchdown pass.
That's what I want to see though. That's what I want. Just we come out, we're in rhythm, and we don't even have the excuse of, it's a first-year offensive coordinator. Well, now he's not. Andy's been here. They know the offense. Everybody has we have a ton of experience at every position. We should come out there and really lay into almost everybody except Oregon and Ohio State to start the games.
Right. Last funny kind of question here. J knows O. Their Twitter handle is fake JPaw. So I'm trying to prepare you for what this question is about to be. Any chance the offense lines up in a 2-back pro set with Drew Aller under center?
Let's do it.
I mean, they don't do that necessarily, but they do have.
They do in the shotgun.
They have and they have their kind of flex bone, or not flex bone, wishbone / pistol full house formations that are relatively similar. They're not going to probably use Katron Allen and Nick Singleton like that, but they've used, I would expect to see another full house situation where they've got Rappelier, Dinkins, and a running back there. If that makes you feel somewhat close to it.
Yeah. I think there are ways that you could do that. Think about it this way. And this is a team that I think Penn State's going to be very similar to Michigan in 2023. They weren't lining up Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards, behind J.J. McCarthy very much with J.J. under center. But they lined up in the backfield a lot with him, right, just like we did last year with K-Chon and Singleton. And I think you're going to see a very similar thing this season.
Perfect. All right. Those are all of our fan questions. Thank you so much. It might happen. We'll see how my week goes. I was thinking about doing a Big Ten pick'em test run this weekend because there are some week 0 games, no Big Ten games, or no team in the Big Ten playing. I believe. Is that 100%?
I don't think so. No. Yeah, I think you're right.
I don't think so. Nebraska Northwestern played one time in Ireland, I think, on week 0, and I wasn't necessarily completely prepared. But I was thinking about doing a test run because one thing we hear about Big Ten pick'em all the time is I wasn't ready and I already missed one. Now I'm behind. That's your fault, not ours. So don't project that on us because you're not seeing all of our tweets. You should see every single one of our tweets. If not, then that's your fault. But I thought I would do a little test run, give everyone a chance to kind of see it a couple times and be aware of it. But so again, we will be doing that. And I thought I had something else I wanted to add, but
wow, there's 4 games the first Thursday night in the Big Ten.
The last thing I wanted to say, and this is just completely to jinx everything and ruin our entire season, is you're starting to see some injuries across the country right now. I saw Michigan had a true freshman offensive line. He's out for the season. Texas Tech's running back out for the season with an ACL injury. And defensive back for Alabama out with a broken collarbone, most likely for at least 6 weeks. So you're starting to see some injuries here and there, and it just kind of puts things back in perspective a little bit as far as like sometimes no news out of fall camp is better than some news. So it's been a little bit, in my opinion, Sean, a smidgen more quiet this past week than, say, the first week. But I didn't know. I want to give you a chance. Any other whisperings or things you've heard that you wanted to maybe bring up?
Yeah. I mean, one thing I could tell you is Xavier Gilliam looks really, really good. And it sounds like they feel, and we talked a little bit about defensive tackle depth. Like those three guys are above the what we have next, and we have some depth, but it sounds like he's going to be ready. I kind of hate relying on guys I've never seen play before, but positive. Like he's one guy that I want to see play a lot in those first 3 games because he just doesn't have those reps that obviously Zane Durant, but even Alonzo Ford have. Another thing that I wanted to mention, Corey, do you remember way back when I was saying it would be nice to find a way to start Donko and Rucci? Well, it looks like that might be the plan. So maybe James Franklin was listening because Donko, according to the reporters, has been playing a lot of guard. So yeah, I think they're going to go Donko and Rucci on that right side.
And I mean, from a pass perspective, that sounds fantastic too. I think it also maybe gives you you might feel better from a running perspective with that too, because I always felt like Rucci was maybe a little bit better at run blocking, and maybe you could hide Dunka a little bit at guard in that sense. And still have Rucci for right tackle blocking, but then you still have Dunk out there from a pass blocking perspective. That's probably not at all accurate or make any sense whatsoever, but I'm just trying to think about how or where this could potentially benefit them. And I think the run game, that might be where it helps the most. But yeah, Sean, I do remember you saying that. I'll give you some kudos there. And they're going to be moving around quite a bit. I did notice though, or I thought I saw something where the backup, it sounds like Cooper Cousins might not be the backup center either, is what I thought.
No, I think Vanga is. Yeah. So if God forbid, Dawkins gets injured, they'll just move Vanga over to center and bring Cooper Cousins in at guard. So Cousins isn't going to start, but he's going to play a lot. Like I think we're going to see, and Kotelnik he's already talked about, he's willing to play 6 offensive linemen through, times in games. And I think down by the goal line, you're going to see a lot more of that. And also want to check out Landon Tengwall's channel. He talked about Vanga going in motion and how it really didn't yield too many positive results. So I'm hoping that we just see more unbalanced lines because I think that's going to be more effective than the Vanga in motion play.
I still like him going in motion.
Oh, watch Landon's video. I'm not saying we can never do it, but he sold me on we should probably get away from it a little bit more because the results, they didn't yield up as many great results as we hoped.
Gotcha. The only other thing I was trying to think of, Amari Campbell, sounds like he's getting a lot of reps at the mic. Most likely going to be wearing that green dot, we think, as far as the communication to the sideline. We talked a little bit about that last time, but heard a couple more good things out of that. I'm trying to think if there was anything else. Have you heard anything from the secondary side of things? I haven't heard much or seen much as far as how like the safeties are going, as far Day Lane or what else is King Mac. I haven't heard much at all from there.
Well, I know Knowles has talked a little bit about Belgrave Shorter, moved to safety from corner. Kind of thought that could have happened with him out of high school, and it has. But I know, obviously, like he is there, but there's not a whole lot. I know we had a couple of guys having run in with the law this week.
It's a great way to end our show tonight.
One of them is in the safety room, but
who was the other player with him, or that was his roommate?
Oh man, I'm blanking on who it was, but
I'll have to find that real quick.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, we did have running with the law. This is what I get for bringing this up when I'm not prepared.
Well. So what had happened, if people hadn't saw, there was an article about this and it was stupid as hell. Basically some Penn State campus snitches thought they smelled some marijuana coming from Day Lane's Nittany apartment. And so they try to further investigate.
Wosley.
Yes, Kenneth Wosley. And so the report makes it seem like these guys literally tried to climb on top of things from the outside to look in to their window, which, okay, dude, whatever. So then they get, they get access, they get a warrant to go inside, I think, or maybe they just let them in. I'm not really sure. And they found a dusting, quote unquote, dusting of potential marijuana in a bag. And then they didn't call it a bong, but I'm pretty sure they found a bong that maybe had leftover THC in it, I think is what was specifically said. But my favorite part, Sean, of the whole thing is the unopened bottle of Don Julio tequila.
Which I don't think is a crime for an underage kid to have an unopened bottle of tequila in their room.
I think technically you can't even possess it. I think technically, if you were in your freshman dorm and you had a handle of tequila, I don't think you're allowed to just have that, even if it's for
in the dorms. In the dorms, you are not. I know that.
But it was in the apartment.
They might get him with that.
Still technically a dorm.
Yeah, they might get him that way.
Yeah, which is really stupid. But point being, we're really getting upset in 2025 about a dusting of marijuana and an unopened bottle of tequila. That's where we're at.
It's still illegal, you whippersnappers.
Yeah. Also, just to be clear, and I'm not saying that police should look the other way, but if this was in some other places, this wouldn't be a story, because I don't think anywhere else police try to go out of their way to snoop into someone's window of a football player to see if they have a dusting of marijuana or a unopened bottle of tequila.
Yeah, the tequila is the best part.
It is.
It's Don Julio too. That's pretty good stuff.
Yeah. Did not get a clarification on if it was Blanco or not, but anyway. Look, I just think that's really dumb. And I know it's marijuana had some problems, but it seems like every year this is happening everywhere. The Clemson tight end just got hit with a DUI, and I think Dabo said he's going to miss some time, which the way it was phrased just made it seem like, yeah, he's going to get the Michigan treatment.
Yeah. And DUIs are different, but than just having a dusting of marijuana in your garbage.
Huge difference, in my opinion.
Yeah, you're not endangering anybody having marijuana in your apartment. But yeah, DUI, getting behind the wheel of the car, you're endangering everybody on the road,
right?
Including yourself. But yeah, this is not much of a big deal. The punishment's probably they have to run some gassers, honestly. As a matter of fact, Jim Knowles named Kenny Wosley the defender of the day the next day after this was reported, which I think is just hilarious. And I don't know, maybe Jim Knowles doesn't even know what happened.
Jim Knowles, it was probably Jim Knowles.
Or just doesn't care. He's just like, maybe, yeah, he was holding it for Jim Knowles. He just left it there. Forgot to come back for it. It was just Jim's.
The last thing I wanted to just rant about, Sean, if you could, is the NCAA did come out with their punishment for Michigan for cheating, and $35 million, some scholarship reductions. I think they saw the suspensions by Michigan of Sharon Moore as enough, basically, and no real other significant, no vacating of wins or the national championship, and no postseason ban because, quote unquote, they didn't feel that it was acceptable to punish the current players, which we don't have to explain to you guys how much full of shit irony that is. Isn't it ironic? Don't you think? You know, it's kind of like rain on your wedding day. It's a green light when you're already late. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Do you know as soon as we left the church on my wedding day, it started raining?
Yeah. Went to a brewery.
Which brewery did you go to?
I don't know. Just a little tiny one, little garage looking place on a corner.
Very nice.
No,
yeah. But anyway.
I'll rant about this real quick and just say, look, what is frustrating the piss out of me is not so much that their punishment was a slap on the wrist, like whatever. I wasn't expecting that to be any different. Yeah. What has frustrated the heck out of me is there are all of these people that are like, well, they still went on a tear in the playoff and beat all those teams after the cheating was known and the scouting was known, and all those teams had a chance to change their signs, and Michigan still won on the field, and they still had a really good team and a lot of All-Americans, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Couple things. Number one, Michigan had been doing this for a long time. Yes, they did have a very good team the year they won the national championship, but they were able to build that brick by brick over multiple years, where if they weren't cheating, who knows in the world of college football where and how the dominoes may fall if they don't win this game or they don't win that key game. And if you have any sort of advantage, which the NCAA admitted that they did provide a competitive advantage, that helps you in a game of inches, in a game of a weird, oddly shaped ball and which way it's going to bounce. Having any sort of additional competitive advantage helped them build that program and get it to a point where they then could have an elite team to go on a run. And secondly, which is probably the part that frustrates me the most, on the, oh, well, they still won even after everybody knew that the cheating had occurred. Well, those teams in the middle of their preparation for Michigan had to redo all of their signs. Like, people act like there's no opportunity cost for that. Like, everybody can just change their signs in 5 minutes. Yeah. Like, we had receivers a couple years ago, midway through the year, that still didn't know what route to run. So don't act like changing signs is no big deal and it's not an excuse. There's a you could argue it was even more of a competitive advantage once other teams had to do that. So you combine those two things together, it's going to come off biased coming from a host of hardcore Penn State football. But that national championship is completely 100% tainted. No college football team, probably since Cam Newton in 2010, has just won a national championship by not building a program. Maybe you could say LSU 2019, maybe, but everybody else has had to build a program and get to that point, and then they finally get over the threshold. Georgia's a perfect example of that. Yeah, you don't just come out of left field and win a national championship and get lucky. And in order to do that, Michigan had to cheat for multiple years. And so, as far as I'm concerned, all of those wins should have been vacated as soon as they, this extensive KGB spy program existed. And Connor Stallions and Harbaugh should have been banned from college football forever. The national championship should have been taken away. And Sharon Moore should have been suspended for a longer time, just at the very least for not being willing to work with the NCAA. In fact, going completely the opposite way in stalling the investigation and obstructing the justice by deleting text messages and saying it was because he had to clean up storage on his phone. Like, that's where we were at with all of this. They're not only are they cheaters, but then there are liars on top about it. You can ask anybody. Nothing I hate more than a liar, and it makes it easier that it's a Michigan team. But no, I'm pretty disgusted. Not again. I didn't expect the NCAA to do anything different. I don't expect Michigan to feel bad about it. I think they're actually appealing even what their current punishment is. But what does frustrate me are the tons of media folk who are missing the point completely. Like, I don't know if they just don't know better. I don't know if Michigan really has that much of a pool in their numbers, but or they just don't know college football. I don't know, but they know better than that, don't they?
Yeah. Well, you have to keep in mind a lot of people in sports media either went to Michigan or are Michigan fans, or the producers are Michigan fans, and it's giant brand. I think it's only behind Notre Dame and Ohio State. So there's just a lot of fandom for them. My reaction to this. Do you remember Sonny Dykes when TCU played them? Sonny Dykes said they knew they were cheating back then in 2023. This is before Stallions got exposed and everything. And they were able to go and change all their signs, but they had a month to do it because they had a whole month to prepare before, I believe it was the Fiesta Bowl. And what happened? Michigan's defense looked like they didn't know what was happening, and it was a huge upset at the time, and nobody was picking TCU to beat Michigan. Nobody, because barely anybody thought TCU even should have been there, and then sure enough, they ended up getting trounced by Georgia the next week, but they still found a way to put up 45 points on, at the time, people thought the best defense in the country, or second best defense in the country.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think whenever people bring up, well, they had the best team in 2023 and that's why they won. Very well could have been. They might have won without cheating. As a matter of fact, I think they probably would have. I think they had the best team that year. But just keep in mind that TCU game, where TCU had a heads up that these guys steal signs more than, and everybody steals signs to a degree, but there's something more there than the average bear. Like, they are they are just straight up cheating, and we didn't know the extent of it, but it was known, and TCU had to readjust everything, and then they won. And then the other thing with, and just think about Connor Stallions, it wasn't just looking at the other team's sideline. The guy was on Central Michigan's sideline with spy glasses on in a Halloween disguise. Like, are we serious? And then we're supposed to believe that, Harbaugh and Sharon Moore, who was the offensive coordinator at the time, they didn't know anything. Nah, come on. Like, let's just use some common sense here. And then to Sharon Moore. If it was 10 years ago, Sharon Moore would have been fired. Not just suspended. He would have been fired. And how do I know that? Because Jim Tressel got fired for a lot less. All Jim Tressel did in that whole tattoo gate was lie to the NCAA to protect his guys. And he got fired, and he never coached again in college football. Now, he's doing okay. He's the lieutenant governor, I think, in Ohio. But he did way, way less than Sharon Moore did. And Sharon Moore got an additional game suspension. He's suspended for 2 games this year. Michigan self-imposed it, and then a game in 2026. Like that's nothing. That is a vacation. So
it sucks that was on X defending or comparing it with Ohio State and USC fans. Like Ohio State, they had wins vacated because those guys accepted tattoos for sports memorabilia. USC vacated wins and a Heisman Trophy because some guys got free rent from an apartment, basically. Like, that. Anyway.
And you brought up Cam Newton and Auburn, too. I think on-field cheating is way worse than getting a bag of money thrown at you or getting a house for your parents.
Right.
Like, we're talking about on-field cheating.
Right.
Like, literally violating the integrity of the game.
This is something I've always struggled with, and this is why I always felt the NFL did it incorrectly. In my opinion, the NFL should never punish anybody for actual criminal offenses because it's not their place to do so. Now, if the player's employer, the team, wants to suspend them or wants to kick them off the team, so be it. But in my personal opinion, the NFL should not be punishing players for domestic abuse or for a murder. I don't care about any of that from an NFL perspective. The team should do that. The team should have their rules, and they break those rules, and they do those things. But the NFL shouldn't say, you know what, you had a DUI, so you're going to be suspended for a game. Because then we get to compare or contrast a potential DUI suspension with a Deflategate suspension. And now cheating on the field, well, that doesn't seem nearly as bad as a DUI or a domestic abuse. But in my opinion, like what you were kind of hinting at there, if you were depreciating the integrity of the game, that deserves massive punishment immediately. Performance enhancing, whatever it may be. Like, you are actually affecting the competitiveness of the game. That is where the NCAA, in my opinion, should actually be focusing their time. That's where the NFL should actually be focusing their time. Let the universities and let the NFL organizations handle the criminal offenses. Like, that's what those are, that's what they should be focusing on. Not the NFL, not the NCAA, because now nobody wants to compare a cheating scandal to a sexual abuse scandal, because now that gets really kind of weird and funky, and obviously sexual abuse is way worse than an on-field cheating thing, but you can't even begin to compare those two, and they really shouldn't be, and that's why I think once we cross that line, it gets really hard to kind of calibrate what an on-the-field punishment should be if you've already punished them for criminal offenses that, again, are like the law should be punishing them. Like, drives me nuts.
I hear what you're saying. I think with the NFL, they're so worried about the quote unquote shield and what looks good for the NFL. And I think that's why that probably would never happen. But I understand what you're saying. Like, it's almost like there should be different divisions. Like, the NCAA, I don't know, because like what if, I don't know, there's, and this is something that happened at Baylor. They covered up a murder. Like, and it was either football or basketball, and really nothing happened compared to Penn State. But with the NCAA, so it's almost like, well, shouldn't the NCAA do something? And I don't know the answer to that, to be completely honest with you. But I hear what you're saying too. Like, the doing something on the field, it just feels a lot more different than just, like I said before, a guy getting a house bought for him. It just feels like a different level. And I think it is definitely a bit of a gray area.
It is. But anyway, that's probably our last off-season conversation. Sean, you and I need to have some conversations about when we're going to record next. Here's my thought process. I would like to get back to twice a week, potentially starting next week. So we have football under 2 weeks. And so thinking, we enjoy this week for what it is. We come back on with a Sunday or a Monday show. I forget, when we were 2 times a week, did we go to a Sunday show when we could?
Sometimes we did Sunday. Yeah, sometimes.
So
yeah, I
we
won't
can
be.
figure that
I don't
out.
think I'll be able to do Sunday this week because I'll be coming home from the beach, but do Monday for sure.
So then maybe we do our maybe true kind of preview, and I don't know how much of a true preview we want to do this year. We do some sort of preview on Monday, give our predictions, those kind of things, set the stage, and then we'll jump right into the Nevada preview. Come in on our Wednesday show.
Got the Wolfpack coming in.
Yes.
Sounds good.
I haven't dove deep into it yet, but it sounds like their offense is kind of fun. They got a lot of motion and stuff. Could be a good early test as far as knowing your rules and knowing your assignments. So we'll see. We'll see if the defense is prepared. I think it's a good first test for Jim Knowles without it actually being too much of a test.
Yep. I would agree. I haven't really dove into Nevada yet, so
Me neither. Me neither.
And they play FIU second, right? And then Nova?
Yeah. Yep.
Sounds good. All right. We good?
We're great. Thank you guys so much for listening. If you're watching live on YouTube, please take a second, like the video, and subscribe. Obviously, we have a new channel. Would appreciate your support there. And if you're listening on the podcast, all the audio podcast stuff, by the way, is figured out. So we're good there again. You can subscribe on Apple, Spotify, wherever else you may be listening. Make sure you rate us there 5 stars or give us a 5-star review. We'll read those on the show. We haven't done that for a while, but we'll get back to it. And we'll catch you guys next week. So for Sean Kane, I'm Corey Listoki. You've been watching and listening to Hardcore Penn State Football. Until next week, see you guys.